Right now on 630 Point of View, does the North Dakota higher ed system want one head coach or 11 head coaches? I'll explain tonight. Plus, Minnesota, what are you going to do when all the wealthy people leave? Because you're about to get a surcharge. I'll explain that too right now on 630 Point of View. Good evening, I'm Chris Berg. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tonight's Point of View topic, does North Dakota truly want a unified university system or not? Since we're coming off the Bison spring football game in the NFL draft, I thought, hey, I'll visit with you tonight about the North Dakota higher ed system in football terms, since obviously football can explain everything in life, right? Look, the ultimate question we must ask ourselves is, do we want the North Dakota higher ed system to go out there and win Super Bowls, to win championships, or just be like the Minnesota Vikings? Do we want to create a unified system that can graduate the best, most job-qualified students in the country, or stick with the status quo, which, oh, by the way, last time I checked, right now, status quo has a 4-year graduation rate of 23%. As many of you are probably aware, a story broke over the weekend that several of the university presidents were exchanging emails with themselves, different people, about their dissatisfaction with the North Dakota University System Chancellor Ham Shravani. If you tune into this show regularly, we've been saying this now for weeks, that legislators were basically being used as puppets by the university presidents to get Chancellor Shravani fired or forced him to quit. The question that I want you to be asking yourself tonight is why? Why do these presidents want Shravani gone? Is it because he's not doing what's best for the students? I mean, it couldn't get much worse. Let me show you this graphic. Again, graduation rates for full-time students at NDSU, UND, Valley City State, Mayville State. Look at those numbers. If those are numbers that are going to make us go, hey, this thing is great, we're successful, come on. The other thing you want to notice, student loans have gone up. I can show you the next graphic, please. Student loan debt over the last 10 years at NDSU and UND has gone up 125%. So clearly you can see there's some issues taking place. Plus, the other thing is the North Dakota University system right now, 1 in 4 incoming freshmen, in other words, 25% of incoming freshmen, wait for this, must take remedial classes. 1 in 4 have got to take remedial classes just to basically catch up to college level courses. I mean, that means these people are sitting around, they're taking remedial classes, they're wasting time, and they're spending money taking classes they don't even get college credit for. Look, the other question you have to ask yourself is, do the university presidents want Shravani gone because they're scared he might take away some of their power? Let me explain. We've all said that we want this unified system, but what does that really mean exactly? How does a unified system look? I'm going to share with you tonight how it looks in football terms. And here, if you can see, we can bring up this graphic, what we actually currently have right now. Right now, we've got the owners, which is the North Dakota taxpayers. Then you've got the GM, the general manager, which I would say is the State Board of Higher Ed. And then down here, you've got 11 different head coaches. Now, the thing you've got to look at is, look, the GM is typically the person that's going to lay out the vision, the policy, does the hiring, the firing, just like the Board of Higher Ed does. But let me ask you this. How successful is a team going to be if you've got a GM and 11 different head coaches that are all running, let's say, different offenses, for example? One guy's teaching his guys how to run maybe the spread offense down at North Dakota State College of Science. But then you've got President Brashan at NDSU talking about, hey, guys, we're going to run the veer option. When you've got 11 different coaches all teaching a different offense, not going to win a lot of football games. But hey, it still gives the presidents a lot more power. Here's what I want you to look at, what we're talking about with a unified system. Here's what this would look, if we can bring this up. A unified system is still going to have the owner as the taxpayers. You're still going to have the general manager as the State Board of Higher Ed. But the key thing is, now you've got one head coach. That's Chancellor Shravani as the head coach. And then you've got all these different assistants down here, whether it be an O coordinator, D coordinator, QB coach, wide receiver coach, whatever. But the key thing is this. With one head coach, now we're teaching one system. For example, he can come in and teach the West Coast offense and then have these 11 other coaches that are all executing the West Coast offense to win championships, to win Super Bowls. And here's the good news. The chancellor right now has already created the West Coast offense playbook. This is it right here. And I got to ask you, did I just do that more smoothly than Marco Rubio, I hope? But this is the playbook right here. And one of the key strategies in this playbook is to raise admission standards. It's called the Pathways to Student Success. Now, why is raising admission standards critically important? Because a couple things happen. One is we're going to have more kids that are obviously college ready. Thus, the students are taking less remedial classes, which allows the kids to take more credit courses earlier in their college career. That helps end up raising the four-year graduation rates. Plus, it lowers student debt because kids aren't hanging around taking courses for 6 to 7 years. It's a key strategy, and we've already got the playbook. So again, a couple questions I want you to ask yourself tonight is this. Do we want a unified higher ed system in North Dakota with one head coach or not? And why do the university presidents want Scrivani gone? Is it for the best interest of the students? Is it because maybe Scrivani's not the right head coach? Or is it so the presidents can keep their power? And that's tonight's point of view. Earlier today, we asked you on the Valleys Live Facebook page if you wanted to have a unified university system or if you preferred the college presidents running their own campuses separately. Here's what a couple of you had to say. Wanda Weber: I think the universities and colleges need to work together for the betterment of all students. I just do not see it happening under this chancellor. He seems to have the attitude that as North Dakotans, we don't know what we're doing and we're all a bunch of backwoods hicks. Now, Eric Rice also said, tell him to clean out his desk and leave and go home wherever that is and no buyout. Then Flacco can have the job. A lot more of your feedback coming up. In just a moment, you've got to find out what the universities where presidents were saying to each other via email. We're going to discuss that next with the owner of Say Anything blog, Rob Port. And as always, be sure and join our conversation by going to our website, 630pov.com. You can email us, text us, whatever's easiest for you. We'll be right back. With me right now, live from Bismarck, the owner of Say Anything blog, Rob Port. Rob, you just saw my football analogy here with the North Dakota University system. What am I missing? Is Chancellor Scrivani maybe not the right coach or what?
Well, I think you could say maybe he's not the right coach, but I think we've got a real problem when we start talking about whether or not the people working under him should be running the place. I mean, I think we've got a real problem when you bring in a boss and you tell him to do something. Sometimes bosses have to make decisions that are unpopular for the people who work for them. And I think that's what Chancellor Scrivani is doing right now. And essentially, I think in a lot of ways, if they're successful in pushing Chancellor Scrivani out, I think what you're doing is you're letting the employees go over the boss's head and push the boss out. I don't think that's any way to run a railroad or a football team, to use your analogy.
Let me ask you this, because obviously Minot State University President David Fuller finally came out and had a few comments. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But why aren't these presidents being more vocal one way or another?
You know, that was interesting. There was that newspaper report about the thousands of emails that have been obtained through open records requests. And one of the interesting emails that was reported was that NDSU President Dean Brashani said that he and his colleagues were remaining quiet. They weren't showing up to legislative meetings because they didn't want legislators to ask them about how Chancellor Scrivani was doing. Now, to me, that's not indicative of a group of people who are interested in solving a problem. That, to me, is indicative of a group of people who are trying to hang someone out to dry. So I think what they're trying to do is work in the background, frankly, to push the chancellor out, is what it appears to me.
I agree with you. And just to let people know, we have asked President Brashani to come on this show several times. We continue to ask him today. We still have yet to have him say yes. Hopefully that will work out. But speaking of President Brashani, them being mum, yet they're still exchanging emails with different people. I want to share with you this email exchange that took place with a distinguished professor, if we can bring this up. It says, I seem to remember, this is him saying to President Brashani, I seem to remember a university leader, obviously President Brashani, saying this man, meaning Chancellor Scrivani, wasn't qualified to be a chancellor. I wonder what that individual is thinking now. Then President Brashani goes on to say, well, given the clairvoyance that only a university distinguished professor might have, I'll bet you can come in the situation and read minds. So that should be a picture of President Brashani. My point is, Rob, is I want to get your thoughts on President Brashani doing these sort of behind-the-scenes, behind-the-back emails and coming out forthright and saying, hey, this guy's not qualified to be a chancellor.
Oh, I think so. It was widely, I guess, told to me in political circles that President Brashani is not somebody who supported Chancellor Scrivani being hired for his present position. And that exchange that you referenced sure sounds to me like sort of a tongue-in-cheek allusion to the fact that Prashani didn't want Chancellor Schiavone hired in the first place. And again, I think it sort of speaks to this toxic environment that we have in higher education in North Dakota right now, where you have one group of people in the system trying to actively undermine the leadership of the system.
Rob, one thing else I want to share with you, because one of the things that shocks me is that there's such little conversation about the actual higher ed customers meeting the students. With that being said, I'm going to share with you a quote here from the president of Minot State University, David Fuller. He goes on to say this: Fuller and other campus officials feared the changes to admission standards, obviously talking about Chancellor Schiavone's pathways to success, admission standards, tuition charges, and the overall missions of the different colleges and universities in the state could cut enrollment and diminish the university's status in the state. Not one word there about what's best for the students. Your comments?
Yeah, I think system-wide, not just at Minot State University. I think there's definitely, we've lost sight of the primary reason why the state created these universities in the first place, which was to serve the people of North Dakota by providing relatively low-cost, efficient educations. And I think we've gotten so far away from that we're now worried about quote-unquote research programs. We're worried about economic development programs. And meanwhile, I mean, can we really say right now that the universities in North Dakota are providing a low-cost, efficient, quality education to our students? I think when you look at things like graduation rates, when you look at growth in tuition prices, I'm not sure you can make that argument anymore.
Last question for you, Rob, and you said in one of your blog posts, Schiavone's gone. This is from one of your sources. Schiavone's gone as soon as Representative Bob Scarpel isn't around to hold his pants up for him anymore. Is Schiavone gone at the end of the session?
You know, I think that very much remains to be seen. From what I'm told, there are people, the State Board of Higher Education is currently split evenly on the vote. Now, how true that is, I don't know. Probably only the board members know that. I would say at this point it's a coin toss to whether or not he goes.
Rob Port, owner of Standing Blog. Always great to have you with us, Rob. Look forward to having you back on very, very soon. Stay with me, because what is Minnesota going to do when the mass exodus happens? You're going to have to find out. Representative Paul Marquardt joins me next. And as always, join our conversation by going to our website, 630pov.com. You can email us. You see the email there. Text us at that phone number below, or leave us a voicemail message. We'll be right back. With me now out of St. Paul, Minnesota State Rep Paul Marquardt, also the chairman of the Education Finance Committee. Paul, you must have a big smile on your face. I'm looking at $15.7 billion budget, or another $550 million more in spending. Here's my question for you. Minnesota's got a budget shortfall, about $627 million. It says here, and I want to ask you this, your plan to pay back the loan to the schools of $850 million is to put a surcharge on the wealthiest Minnesotans, yes?
That's right. I mean, one of our promises was to make sure we paid back the money we owed back to our schools and our students, and we're living up to that promise. And that's going to take some money, along with filling the hole on the $627 million budget deficit. But, you know, you talk about a large percent going to education. It is 40% of the budget, but education has always been our top priority. But I have to say, what we have in this bill for the first time ever, Chris, is it's not just money being thrown to education and then hoping for the best. There's a World Best Workforce Plan where schools are accountable for meeting plans in the next 13 to 14 years. And we're not just talking easy ones, but 100% close the achievement gap, 100% graduation, among other things. So it's dollars they're held accountable for, and they actually have to get to results.
So I want to get to that in a moment, but first with this surcharge, I mean, even your Governor Dayton, not the most spendthrift guy in the world, if you will, even he says, hey, this surcharge is a bad idea. So help us understand why you think it's a good idea.
What we're doing is we're using one-time revenue for a one-time spending. And there's no easy way to do this. I mean, there's no way we can just pull $825 million out of the other part of the education budget. Otherwise, it comes out of the classroom. It is temporary, up to a maximum of 2 years. It is 4% over the top rate for those who make over $500,000. You know, if I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't, but I do think this is a fair approach. And it's not the first time we've had a temporary tax. Actually, back Republican Governor Al Quie back in the early 80s had a blink on, blink off temporary tax that lasted for just a little bit and then blinked off. I think it's a prudent way to do this.
So, Representative Marquardt, let me ask you this, because here Governor Dayton says he's against this because it's going to make Minnesota one of the highest tax states in the union. Maryland has tried the millionaire's tax. That didn't work. We've all seen what's happened with the Viking Stadium. The revenue is not nearly what they thought it was going to be. So, and I've asked you this before, well, where do wealthy people live? Anywhere they want. When you lose this tax base, how are you going to make up for that money?
The statistics show that you're not losing people because of taxes. And, Minnesota, we have a cold weather state, and yet we're second in the nation in Fortune 500 companies because those companies and businesses and successful people know that what really generates and gets people here is our well-trained, highly educated workforce. And that's why the investment in education is so crucial. And if we're going to have the crucial investments in education and higher education, then it's going to cost a little money. So again, going back, it is a high tax rate for 2 years, but the long-term benefits are going to be very, very good for this state.
Paul, I've got about a minute left. I've got two quick topics I want to touch on with you. One, on Friday, the Minnesota House is going to vote on raising minimum wage. Will you vote yes for that bill?
We just, in fact, have heard that in Ways and Means today. I did vote for it. I will vote for it again. It starts out, it's down from, up over $10 at one time. It would start at $8 for next year. I think what it would do is help consumer demand, because we know statistics show that folks who get an increase in minimum wage tend to spend that right away back into the economy. That will help businesses increasing consumer demand for their products.
And stats also show that with increased minimum wage, you've also got a higher unemployment rate in those untrained workers. So again, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be a good fit. You're going to have less people employed. It's bad enough in Minnesota. One last thing I want to get from you, since you are with education, there was a piece out of St. Paul. A young girl was out handing out flyers at school that were pro-life flyers, and the school stopped her from doing that. Do you agree with that decision or not from that school?
Well, without knowing the circumstances, I can't say. As long as a student is not disrupting with the classroom and the educational purpose of the school, typically that's okay. So without knowing the other circumstances, I wouldn't be able to comment on the rest.
Well, Paul, you nailed it. That's obviously what the legal people are going to say. Paul, always great to have you with us. 3 weeks from today, they've got to wrap up this Minnesota session. Representative Marquardt, we hope to have you on a bunch more as things I know will heat up with appropriations. And stay with us. When we come back, we're going to get to more of your feedback. I invite you to join our conversation. Go to our website, 630pov.com. Welcome back. Earlier today, we asked you on our Valley News Live Facebook page, do you think North Dakota should have a unified higher education system, aka with a chancellor, or should each college be ran independently just by the college presidents? Interesting here, because only five of you said, hey, we should have a unified system. 8 of you said, no, let each college do their own thing. And I think 3 of you said, you know what, I don't care. One thing that's interesting is that in 2014, we're going to put this up for a vote where they're looking to sort of abolish the State Board of Higher Ed. With what you're telling us right there tonight, that may pass, and there may be a lot of changes coming place here in higher ed in the state of North Dakota. Let's get to the most important part of the show, your point of view. This is a text that came in. Where do you get your facts? That 1 in 4 need remedial classes? Have you seen California students? I don't believe our students are at that level. Look, I had a very great conversation today with a couple of people from United Way of Cass Clay about education, and that's where I got the stat. They went out, did their homework, and said right now in North Dakota, now keep in mind, obviously we have students that come in from Minnesota and different states, but of all the students that go into our university system, 1 in 4, according to United Way of Cass Clay, right now need remedial classes just to get caught up to college level courses. Another point of view that came in, if Minnesota politicians who are economically illiterate continue to punish my success, I can and will move as I can live anywhere, bringing jobs elsewhere. Thank you for the great text. One of the things you want to know, the surcharge that I just asked Representative Paul Marquardt about, that's not even about the tax. That's not even including the tax they're going to raise on the higher income people in Minnesota. That is a surcharge for the wealthy. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, all these cats that have lived in California that are sick and tired of getting taxed to death are moving. So you watch. Same thing happened in Maryland. You watch. You're going to start to lose some of that tax base, and then what are you going to do? Now, as many of you might know, Tim Tebow was released by the New York Jets today. We wanted to pay a small tribute to him, and I took some vacation time last year, and so I just wanted to share with you some pictures from my travels. Here I am in Paris. That's me in Hakuna Matata. Here we are. You know what? Kate Upton saw that picture first before she went down to Antarctica. Good day, mate. There's me hanging out with the kangaroos. I had to learn Mandarin. Obrigado in Rio, and there I am in Fargo. Man, those pictures went fast. I wanted to relish that trip around the world a little bit more, but obviously having some fun there with Tim Tebow. I don't know where Tebow's going to end up. Maybe you can let us know. Again, go to our website, 630pov.com. Will the Vikings make a reach for Tim Tebow? That would be hysteria up here in the area if we made out and made a reach for Tim Tebow. Want to remind you, tomorrow night, coming up and joining us, the North Dakota Senate Minority Leader, Mac Schneider, is going to be with us. You may or may not know, probably Friday is when the North Dakota legislative session is going to end. We'll have a great discussion with Mac to find out for you, what have these people really done for you, the people of North Dakota? On Wednesday, we're going to have U.S. Senator John Hoeven joining us here on the show. That will be an exciting conversation as well. And if you've got any questions or comments for these individuals, whether it be Mac Schneider, John Hoeven, I want to invite you to go to our website, join our conversation here. Go to 630pov.com. You can see the email address right there. Email us there. If you like that Twitter thing, use the hashtag. And as always, you can text us or leave us a voicemail at 369-3187. Thanks for joining me tonight here on the first and only interactive TV show in the Valley. Have an outstanding night.